most people, but
Andy? I'm Andy Wejic from Almar High School. I work with kids with severe disabilities in a program called CIP.
Andy Johnson, Standing Point, Gifted Intervention.
Kevin Kurtz, Director of Special Education.
Karen Neely, Principal, Standing Point.
Stephanie Schellenberger, second grade teacher at Standing Point.
oh, I'm Diane from the Keel from the school board.
I'm Brian Kaiser. I'm a special education teacher at Walton.
John Burke, School Technology, or DART.
Hi, Melissa Anderson, Strategic Planning.
Matt Hawes, Central Office Staff.
Jay Thomas, principal over at Almar High School.
Great crew.
So one of the things we're going to provide some information on, and really we have more information than less, so we could always adapt, but we want to have a discussion about universal design. And one of the things, even just as we started, and I'll go on good faith, Brian, that you'd be right on board, because there is a universal definition of universal design. And that is using the architecture of space, technology, and curriculum to provide multiple pathways to success for all students. And it's one of those ways that we wanted to give some examples, some real-life examples of how that concept of universal design is consistent, although done in a different way across different modalities and places in the public school system, from gifted to special education to the regular ed classroom, to maximize involvement for all students. So Diantha, we'll take your lead, and in terms of flexibility, and you wanting to ask questions and go deeper, but we go around and give little examples. Brian, we're looking to do 5 to 8 minutes, but just a few minutes, and then we'll do that. So, Andy, you want to start with just some examples of
Universal design learning comes from architecture, and the idea that when you're building a building from the ground up, or when you're renovating a building, like if you design it for the individual that needs the most accessibility, then you're benefiting everybody. And the perfect example is a door. In the old days, we used to say that you wanted everything ADA compliant. And so they would make a door, and then they would stick a little switch on the door, and they'd have this little thing that opens the door. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. Mm-hmm. The alternative approach would be to make a door that everybody could use, like a sliding door. So on the left you have the traditional, and on the right you have like what you'd find in a hospital, and everybody does it, and it's invisible. And the flexibility that the universal design process brings to it is it looks invisible. You don't notice it normally unless somebody points out, oh yeah, that's a universal design process. At AHS, we've been doing universal design for at least 5 years, and we targeted it like very specifically. We're trying to make our program the program that we want for our own son or daughter if they had a disability. And we looked at areas to maximize that. One was in life skills. We have a mass transit program that's designed to teach kids to use the universally designed materials that are in the community. We have this employment program that helps individuals, like for us to assess individuals and to give them practice and real world experiences raising money. And then we have technology, and we have both low technologies and high technologies. The universal design model, because it's designed for everybody, if you start with an individual with a severe disability and you make something that works for them, it almost always will work for everybody else. Here's an example. This is the classroom that, and I want to thank Diantha, because I'm sure you helped us get the Aero grant money for this.
It's one of our former students.
Yes, it is. I love that. The kitchen was built years ago. He's actually a brand new student to us. We didn't know exactly we were going to get him. We knew at some point we'd have an individual with a wheelchair. But from day one, we now have the flexibility for him to have access to all of the materials that are in the room. But everybody benefits from it. So for years we've been using it, and it just happened to be built for the most extreme situations. And they do some really cool stuff in there. One of the things that they do is they run an authentic restaurant where they're selling real food, where they're making real food. And it's high-end food. The picture on the bottom is one of the salads that the students created, and it was created by that individual right there.
One of the things just to highlight is that the idea of the restaurant, though, did not come after the design of the room, that it was the curriculum and what the children, what the teacher, Andy in this case, wanted the kids to experience that led to the universal design of that learning space. So Andy had a vision about this and that salad well before that room was ever created. So, and that's different about universal design, because there's a concept about what we want kids to do and learn before that space is created.
You begin with the end in mind, and this is a classic example of pulling resources together, because I remember just observing it. I mean, I wasn't consulted a whole lot about it, but I remember that classroom was just a traditional classroom. And Kevin and Andy did a lot of work to pull together financial resources from a grant. They had the plan that they wanted to execute, and the curriculum and then building services played a key role in coming in and helping them decide what would work in the room and what wouldn't. So as it got done, there were all kinds of resources coming together and different people doing the planning to have that final product.
This is the atrium space that was added to Albemarle High School during the same construction period. It's being used by our students to have that authentic restaurant for experience. We invite parents in of our students, and we invite other groups of students from around the county in.
And soon Diantha's getting invited, so
Yeah,
if you're looking for an invite.
Yeah.
And the kids take orders, work with real money, work with real people, and we get authentic data that's very important to drive our program forward. The space, though, is designed to be flexible. This is the exact same classroom in a 1-week period, going through the different variations that we can set it up to do. In the upper left, we have not traditional, but something called structured workstations, which helps individuals with autism or some other disabilities. The same workspace that was being used for cooking becomes the wheelchair accessible desk for our wonderful student there. But we can also set it up as a more traditional classroom. One of the things that I really want to emphasize is that, like, making universal design does not mean that you're lessening the quality of the instruction for the student. You're not dumbing things down. If anything, you're creating the space and situation where you can raise the standards for the students. And we have high expectations for our students. This is one of our students that is our maitre d' at the bistro. The students are able to raise money from the coffee cart funds, and they were able to buy 4 laptops. This is one of them. Specifically bought because it has a touch screen. It's a universal computer, universally designed computer. Pass that around. We found a grant, and we got iPads with some high-end communication software that allows individuals with severe disabilities to speak, even if they don't have a voice. And one of the cool things that we're able to do, and this was today's lesson, this is every day. Some students are assigned to researching things. Other students are creating the story, and then a third group of students is programming the device for the kids that need it.
And just to highlight that, again, this is the severe class night. This is community-based instruction program.
I'll pass this around and get it working so that you can see the communication software. One of the important principles from universal design is when you design things universally for people, in the long run, you're lowering the cost for everybody. In this particular software in this particular configuration is using old technology. A touchscreen is just an iPad. We put a durable case on it. It cost about $800. When we went out to buy these, like, we were comparing it to the specifically designed adaptive equipment for an individual that needs to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And the quote we got for one device was $20,000. And this does essentially the same thing. So this idea of you might spend a little bit more money up front to make it universally designed, but in the long run, you're really helping everybody out. And the way it works is the student finds the picture of what they want to say, and it'll speak a word and pass that around.
Heard about those, I just hadn't seen them.
We were able to get 23 of them for the county with the software. That's it, Andy.
Okay. So there's some similarities and some contrasts between what Andy just spoke about and what I see it's doing at Stony Point. One of the things, that happened with us is that we're given the space. So we look at what we're doing as far as designing spaces for kids as being spaces that make it so that kids can reach their potential, which means that we have flexibility. So when I arrived there, I was given a trailer, which I quickly called learning studio.
It's a trailer.
Learning studio. Yeah, when you're a big kid, I thought maybe I was moving away. But it's a learning studio, and so that's a given space. And what I try to do with it in the classroom, the kids I work with, and at school, was to have the kids be part of that process. Be involved in the process of design and keeping that flexible. So one thing that we had when we arrived there was, when I arrived there, and aside from an incredible staff and administrator and everything else, is this Japanese garden, which I think Stephanie has something to share. I just want to show the space though. This is an outdoor learning space. We're not maybe always learning space, but the kids do a lot of sketching there. They've been doing writing out there. And so there's lots of different ways that we can use that, but we focus on observation and writing. And so Stephanie's second grade teacher, she's had a project that she worked on with that.
Yeah, and I can just briefly just share, one of the things we use this space a lot to go out and to sketch, to observe, use our senses. What do you hear? What do you see? It might be just looking at one leaf and making observations and sketching. And our art teachers are so wonderful about teaching kids and us on how to see things. And through an artist's eye or through science or math. My kids, after spending a lot of time out there in the garden, we decided that we wanted to create a field guide of all the plants in the garden. So through going out and spending all the time and making identifications of various different plants and everything that's out there, they chose one that interested them the most. And through their research, their sketching, photography, we try to use the leaf snap through iPods and different things to identify. Then we came up with our Japanese garden field guide. And I brought in a couple if you guys would like to see. But and then through that we were doing geography. So we just said, oh, wouldn't it be cool to map this out? So we had our custodian up on the roof taking pictures, and then we labeled each plant. And so everything is identified with a number, so you would know where to find it when you come to our garden. So now when visitors come, or classes, various people in the building, they can come and get a field guide and find the different plants that there are. This is just a very special place to all of us. Not only does it have plants, we have the pond, various different creatures out there. It's also a burial spot for many of our animals, but it's a special place. So that's just an example of some things.
So then we look at the whole environment, how we can change it so that we can have some kind of, that flexibility and try to get to the outside. So another thing we're fortunate to have is a greenhouse, and her class has also been working in the greenhouse.
Yeah, we're doing the garden beds.
outside.
Yeah, the second grade. We're doing a winter garden, and then we'll continue that all year round with flowers, vegetables. And the kids, they're all, this is what they do at recess. Hopefully they do not overwater, but.
And it's also a butterfly garden, so.
Oh yeah, butterfly.
So it has like a dual purpose.
And we also, right near there is our weather station too, that we use to make observations about weather. There's journaling and collecting data. And a lot of grades do that daily. Go out there.
And we have trails through the woods where the kids
The
can also
Rocky Run,
walk
yes.
to be in nature with an outdoor classroom outside. So we kind of see it as, adapting all of those spaces in the school. Because, I mean, part of it really about the accessibility is that some kids really learn better outside, you know, and if you can get that, bring that into their experience, they're going to have a lot more buy-in into the programs we're trying to do in the school. So, and then we have, this is another thing we've recently done, is, this was our computer lab. And last year, we had,
Formerly known as our computer lab.
formerly known as our computer lab, this is our iSpace now.
now.
Last year we had it set up as the computer lab with computers set up in a U, and so all the kids would go in there basically facing the computers, and you're, you know, like in this room if you had a U like we have here now. So there's basically whole class instruction with computers in place, and kind of rigid, doesn't have that flexibility. So this summer, basically Carrie just redid the whole lab, and it was great. You want to say?
Well, I was going to give Vince credit, but he's not in here right now. I'll do it anyway, just don't tell him I gave him credit. But, you know, he came in, and I have to be honest, it was just after teachers left, and he said, you know, you could do something really different in here. And we were just bubbling at that time, talking about learning spaces and changing up some things. And so we started talking about, you know, the different possibilities for what we could do in that room. You know, it's funny how one little statement, never underestimate one little statement, because that little statement just saying to me I could do something different in there, it was like all of a sudden, I don't know if you have a room in your house that you've just ignored for a long time. I live in an old house, so I do this all the time, different rooms. But all of a sudden it was like we, you know, had this rebirth of this room, and, you know, I had to call in different folks over the summer because I didn't want to do it in isolation. Andy and I argued about colors and hot, cold, but in the end we went with the dragon theme for our colors in the room, and then we just tried to attach it to the Japanese garden, which you can see from the computer lab as a motivation for learning and another connection. And then we just tried to pack the room with different kinds of technology that would appeal to different students and would provide for different experiences. One thing, you know, that we can't, you know, we don't want to force fit our technology. We want to, you know, set on a journey and then say, okay, what's the best technology to get us there or get us somewhere we didn't even think we could go. And so this room, you know, it is still a work in progress. We're still looking at, we had some old new tables that hadn't been unpacked yet that were in storage, and so we used those, but they're round tables. They're not really working out. So right now we're in search of some flexible tables so that we can put them down, move them to the side when we want to, move them out, and it will be a work in progress. But we have microscopes in there. We've got our green screen in there.
The iPods.
We have iPods. We do still have computers, but since we moved to laptops, we can put them in our storage charger cart when they're not in use. So the teachers still had, I knew if I was going to make this change, especially over the summer, that I needed to make sure that teachers could use it if they wanted to, the way that it had been used.
And Andy's done a great job of making, like, we call iKids, so we're taking some kids and teaching them how to use, and so they can teach their peers on how to use the equipment.
And I stands for multiple things.
Yes.
Innovation, invention, you know, incubation, and I think it's the incubation part of it that's where it really has its power. Because if you're trying to change what teachers are doing with technology, we could put the green screen anywhere, and we got a portable screen set up so it can be moved, but we keep it in the lab so it has a presence there and people can see the lights. They can see if somebody's working there, what's going on. And so, you know, what we're trying to do is get the idea across to the entire school. The kids too, because once the kids get a hold of something, they want to do it. So just to give you an example, this is, I don't know, how are we doing on time, Kevin?
Well, I'd say about another 3 minutes or so to give Brian a chance to share.
Okay. I don't have this turned on, wait a minute. This is using the green screen.
Yeah.
This is the movie the kids made for the Young Filmmakers Academy. So I just wanted to see how that works. So they film in front of the green screen and they can put anything behind it. It's a color keyed thing. Okay, and this and the iMovie works directly into it. So we can just quickly show the kids how to do it. They do the performance in front of the screen and then they pick out the backdrop they want to have.
That's awesome.
The Search, now on Blu-ray and DVD.
Hey Sam, what are you celebrating? I got a
So you can see
scholarship.
what-
Yep, I'm just celebrating today. Wanna go to Max? Sure. Max, what are you celebrating? The day I got this quarter. Flashback!
So part of it was for the competition. I know you just got to see the end of it. We can show it to you later if we have the time. But it gets them really excited about what they're doing. It provides this, this really nice audience that you wouldn't normally get. So they show it downtown, and the kids get to have a paparazzi event where they can, be the stars. There's a hour showing. We're doing it this Saturday, or actually next Saturday, at the City Space. Last year was at Paramount. And so, we get together, we have a community event, and they can have a real authentic audience, which we couldn't do without that technology. And then, another part of it for me is like in my classroom, I just try to be flexible with what I'm doing so that, there's different kinds of spaces kids can work at different heights, because some kids like to work on the floor. So this is just a board that I use that I put down low on the floor so kids can stand and work, or kids can come and sit. I thought at first, first and second graders would like that, being close to the floor, but then my fifth graders went out there and a lot of them worked on the floor. This is a 2x4 whiteboard, which is basically just shower board from Lowe's. It costs $15 for a 4x8 sheet. They cut it up for nothing in the 2x4. The kids can work on the floor on the whiteboards. They can use those as a hard surface to draw on. It's just that kind of accessibility, because some kids, they want to work on the floor. So I think of it as being like, flexibility in the space and being able to change the space. And also, I want the kids to have, this is a cardboard arcade that we're doing too in second grade class. This is math garden. We want to set up one of our courtyards as a math garden. It was all grown over in weeds. So we have 2 courtyards. We're blessed with that. But a lot of the schools' courtyards really get kind of, how do you use them is part of the problem.
A lot of them are abandoned or have been in the past.
So on our care day, we were fortunate enough to have some UVA workers come in, and they clean the whole thing out. And so our kids are working on designing, what is a math garden? What could that be? So this is my 4th grade kids that I work with, and they're taking measurements around the garden so they can draw a plan and decide, okay, what would we put in a math garden? How would that work? Is it going to fit? So everything's done to scale.
We get the branches and now we're going over there to get that branches.
So I think it's just cool to have them as part of that design process involved in it, because it's their learning space. What do they need to learn?
Thanks. Brian?
I know you don't need it on.
Nope. Thanks. So, every year my assignment has changed at Walton as far as sometimes I collaborate. We used to have a functional skills program. We just didn't have the numbers for that. So I used to do language arts and social studies and science in there. And this year I'm doing 2 blocks of collaborative language arts and a departmentalized language arts class. So when I think about how I collaborate, I'm lucky I work with 2 great collab teachers, or language arts teachers. I look at my role as being there for all kids, not just kids with IEPs, and how can I serve all kids best. And I think that's really how we both, my partner and I both approach it, and that's why I think we are able to see success with kids, is because we're both coming at it from a similar perspective and place. So this is the first year I've actually had my own classroom. I've always shared spaces. One year I shared it with musical instruments in a climate-controlled spot, but this year I had it all to myself. And the first thing I really wanted to do was just take everything out. There was a bar that jutted out that was old and unstable. There were a lot of desks, so I got rid of everything. And this is like a 360 panorama view. And I made sure the first thing I did was get rid of any teacher desks that were in there. because I really wanted the kids to be able to see this room as their space. And my goal in them seeing it as their space is that they feel that ownership, that this is my room. I'm not in Mr. Kaiser's room, I'm in my room. And I felt that was a really strong message to send to kids because they're so used to seeing Mr. So-and-so's room on doors, and that they're in just the thought that they're in someone else's space and they're a guest. So I really wanted this to be their place. So there's some comfort furniture around the room. And there were tables that hadn't been delivered yet. This is taken in the summertime. The tables are there now. And if you also look at the walls, I made sure the walls were completely blank. And what I explained to parents when they came for open house is it's not that I want the room to be empty, it's that I want them to have ownership of the space, so everything going on the wall will be from them. It's not going to be posters with sayings on it or anything like that. So just giving the kids this space, when they walk in that room, they're automatically making a choice of where they're going to go. They can sit at a table. I have one kid who just prefers the closet, and he likes the lights off in the closet with his netbook. And he's working, but that's just the way he prefers. I have kids that immediately will go to beanbags. The heater space is hugely popular with a couple kids. Some kids really prefer the tables. Others like this corner with the rubber mat. But by not having assigned seats and not having this is where you go, the kids are making a conscious choice of who they're going to sit with and where they're going to sit when they walk in. So they walk in the class already thinking and making a choice of what's best for them. And I think that gets at the heart of what universal design for learning is, a kid making the choice of what they can do to be successful. And that's my SMART goal for the year, is to help kids make the right choices for themselves. Too often I've seen kids that'll just sit there because I don't know what to do, or nobody's telling me what to do. And to create more independent learners by exposing them to a variety of tools and letting them decide what tools are best for them and suit their needs. So one of the ways that we will be doing this is there's a tool called the Freedom Stick. And we're looking at our implementation plan now at Walton. It's a USB device with a lot of assistive technologies on it, like it'll do text-to-speech for kids who struggle with reading. It has a talking calculator for kids who need, it just has a lot of different tools for kids. And exposing them to tools like that so that they can make the choice to say, I need this tool now, or I don't need this. As a special ed teacher, I have kids who come in with read-aloud accommodations who don't like it. So I tell them, hey, if you don't think you need it, don't use it. And let's talk about why you don't need it. Let's not force you to listen to something that just throws you off if you can do better without it. And it allows us to have conversations. What do you need? What do you not need? Looking at SSR, or Sustained Silent Reading, when kids walk in, they have all these links shared with them. And I know it looked overwhelming to them on the first day, but what the thinking behind this, on the left side, these are all different sites they can use for silent reading. And we try to target all of our kids' interests, but it's also a challenge because with our hunting kids, they love to read stuff about hunting, but it's also hard to find appropriate sites that don't have girls and stuff like that on the site. So we found a nice selection that kids get to choose from every day when we do SSR. We have international newspapers, local news, sports, newspapers geared to kids, time for kids, all sorts of different choices that they can make. And this benefits all our kids. For our kids with IEPs, it gives them everything laid out, but it also does it for everybody. They all have these resources. So instead of a kid saying, well, I like to read about sports, but I don't know where to go, you have 4 choices right here automatically. Then on the right side, I designed this so that there are Web 2.0 tools and other tools like that give kids choices for how to do projects and how they're going to show that they know something. And kids choose different things. There's a comic maker here. There's an animation maker. this is another animation maker, and this one has been great for kids that really struggle with presenting. They can make their presentation here, and it's an animated figure that'll actually talk. So you type in what you want the cartoon to say, and it'll say it for you. And I have one girl who's just terrified to speak in front of an audience, but she can make a Vokie all day. And she made great Vokies, and I was able to take those Vokies that she made and put them on our class website so the kids could watch them all year. It's not like it's you present, you're done, forget the information. It was archived for all kids to access. And kids this year are using it, who are taking the 7th grade history class as a resource. The girl now is in 8th grade, but they're using it now as a resource. So not only did it benefit the student who made it, it's benefiting all the kids in 7th grade history now. The nice thing with Walton being a one-to-one netbook school is that we just have so much access to technology on a daily basis. Kids have their own netbooks, and they're able to make adjustments for themselves. We teach all kids how to change your screen resolution. If you like bigger text, if you like smaller text, if you like this font versus this font. Kids can program their bookmarks. We use Google Docs a lot, which allows all kids to collaborate and get help that they need. It's a great tool for kids who struggle with writing. If they can share a document and get feedback from their peers or their teachers, and they can use it to whatever degree they want. If they're an independent worker and they feel they don't need it, they can just use it as a place to save their work. If they feel they need help, they have those options to share it with their peers and teachers to get immediate feedback. And really what I look at is just how can I, looking at what do the kids need to know at the end of a lesson or at the end of a unit. And then, like the definition for universal design, helping them take whatever path they need to take to get there. And it's really, I think, the most important thing for me is letting kids make those choices. And I always tell kids, you have the freedom to make the choice until you struggle with those choices. If you sit on a heater every day, but it's only to talk to your neighbor, then we're going to have to help you make a choice to sit at a table or sit away from a certain student. But if you can prove you can handle it, then that's your choice to make. And what I've found is that the kids, when they have the options to make choices for themselves, they take a real ownership of their own education, and through that ownership, they want to do well. It's like with the global fiction readings, when the kids realized that they were writing for other people besides themselves, they took that ownership. They want to do well for themselves. They don't want to do well because I might give them an A versus a B. They want to do well because it's their name, their work, and they're proud of it. I have a student I teach now who has been suspended for a whole year 1 year for bringing a gun to school. He's been suspended for drugs. There's not a lot of discipline that's going to scare him right now. He's been through a lot. He has parents in jail. He's just got a lot going on. But he's motivated through just the variety of technologies to do the work. And he struggles on a daily basis with basic skills, but by helping him see different paths, he gets tuned in automatically. If I was to just give him worksheets every day, I don't think that would really work. But when he feels ownership, he's able to make choices for himself to succeed. This is a student who has a blog, and we give all our kids have blogs, but he's one who's taken more ownership of it than others by selecting his own theme. He posts, and we're able to give feedback. They're able to post fiction and nonfiction, which is nice. Anything they really feel they want, poetry, responses to articles. We had a lot of kids read an Amanda Todd article, and they chose to blog about that. But it's giving kids the option of, here's your blog, this is going out to the world, what do you want to put on it? And we give guidelines, and we're able to hit writing topics at the same time by saying, when you put something out to the world, we got to work on punctuation, we have to work on voice, we have to work on structure. But it's kind of like hiding the vegetables in other stuff when you're trying to feed kids. They don't know they're getting the vegetables all the time. And that's why I think they do such a great job with it, because it doesn't feel like learning to them in the way that they're used to learning being painful. It feels like learning to them in a way that they're excited about it. And I think that's the biggest goal I have, is just to keep them excited about learning, because they're coming from some great elementary schools in our feeder pattern, and it's just how do you keep that momentum going to where they're excited about school. And giving them these kind of choices, when they saw this, and it's like, go ahead, explore it, take a look, see what you like, see what you think you'll read, see what, what platform or Web 2.0 tools you'll use, give it a shot. It's like, that alone just gets them into it, because they're making choices and saying, Voki isn't for me, but Audio Boo, I would really like to make a podcast. They can make those choices, and then when it comes time for a project, well, how can you make a podcast of this? Mm-hmm. And then they can figure it out. And it benefits all kids. This is our first year at Walton that we've done heterogeneous groupings for 6th grade language arts. We've always had honors and then standard. And then the collab classes have fit at that standard level. But this year we took our honors students and put them in with everybody. And it was a controversial move for some people. Some teachers felt like, well, if you put them in there, they're not getting what they need. But UDL allows us to hit the needs of the gifted students and the students who are struggling and reading at a 2nd grade or 3rd grade level. We're able to really meet the needs of all kids. And I know parents that were really nervous about that at first. Well, what do you mean my kid is in a collab class? My kid, reads at a 10th grade level. We've gotten really, really positive feedback from the parents about how much the kids love the class, because there's 2 teachers in there, and we cater to their needs. It's about seeing that individual student and what they need, as opposed to, just this group needs this because this is where they are. And it's really just taking in individual needs and helping kids get there. And that's really, I think just the, between just the physical layout and then the virtual layout of kids, we really try to just have them thinking about everything that they choose. And I have kids that really struggle with reading along in a textbook or like a novel. But if they listen to it, they can get it. And there's a really, we're reading Freak the Mighty now with my 7th and 8th graders. And there was this part where it was a really high level inference. And one of my students had his head on the desk. And if you walk by the class, you'd say, well, why doesn't the teacher make that kid participate? Or why isn't he listening? When I asked that question, he was the first kid with the answer. He's absorbing everything. He understands conflict, resolution, plot, theme. He understands that stuff, and he's getting that information. It's just a different mode for him. I have other kids that, want to just go to a quiet space and read the novel themselves and not be bothered. And it's just a matter of, is my goal to have the best person that can follow along in a text, or is my goal to have everybody understand character development and theme and how a story progresses? And if a kid gets it better one way versus the other, I look at it like it's my job to give those options.
Thanks, Brian. Dan, did you have questions? I want to give you some time to dialogue with folks.
I'm just so impressed. And I wish I was teaching 2nd grade again. Than what we did 30 years ago, I tell you. Now, this is really fascinating work. It really is. I can see why kids as well as teachers are really excited.
Yeah, for me as a learner, it's really kind of fascinating too, because there's so many different levels and ways you can do it. And, working with the whole school and collaborating with all the teachers and gone into classrooms and trying to, get different things started, and gone into other classrooms and seeing what people are doing, like desks at different heights. And I use 5-gallon buckets. I have 5-gallon buckets in the class the kids can sit on, and it's amazing how those buckets are always the first
they go to.
Seats the kids want. That a lot of the kids go to. It's just having stuff like that. It's not that it costs money. It's just thinking about it differently, And it's always the teacher that's in the classroom that's making the difference in how they're working with the kids and the freedom and choices that they provide them with,
And I think the biggest thing people do say is, well, if you put buckets in the room, you're going to have a behavior problem. They're going to be putting the buckets on their head. They're going to be doing this with the buckets. You know, I got the same thing with this layout, and it's like if you give these kids those kind of choices, they rise to the occasion. You know, on a consistent basis. It's not like these are going to be distractions. It's going to, you know, if these are distractions, you have a behavior management issue as a teacher. It's not a student problem.
And they so appreciate that you put the forethought into, you know, how they all might learn differently and respecting them. You were saying earlier that there's a huge connection with our work in responsive classroom and universal design, because, you know, in both of those, you know, kind of areas of focus, it's really so child-centered, but you're right, it's really exciting when you hear all of you all talk about what you're doing. You can't miss the excitement that teachers are feeling, which it's just like this great cycle.
So what I'm hearing though is that there, as you might expect, there is some pushback within the schools. But are they seen as the modeling?
I haven't.
Is it more from the parents? Pushback from the
I haven't
parents?
seen pushback, Stan.
I was concerned about that this summer just because the lab was an example of something I kind of took a risk on, and Stephanie and Andy will tell you that, you know, when it's a big decision, I usually want to bring everybody together, make sure we're all on board, and yet it kind of was something that happened, and I didn't really have time to do that the way I normally would have, but I really felt like it's been embraced, and there have been, you know, some things we've had to figure out, but no one has said, hey, put it back, we want it the way it was before.
So Karen,
I'm just curious as to how, because I understand you, but you all are a very small number of teachers.
Right.
And I'm wondering how the other teachers in the building, that's what I'm talking
well,
about.
I've noticed
When I say
things going
pushback.
into other classrooms. You know, I've noticed things happen in other classrooms because
So
of
they're
what they
learning-
see.
it's kind of role
So the
model.
word,
It
yeah,
is.
so the
You're
word
attaching.
travels, and it's got a positive. There's a positive side.
So an educator that might say at the beginning of the year to themselves, maybe, these guys are crazy on the whole, they're gonna have buckets on the kids' heads and everybody's gonna be, by the time the year progresses and they really see, as you all role model,
Modeling,
they're
yeah.
starting to, I guess that's,
They're saying.
because not everybody
Well,
thinks
it's
that.
a
Kids
success
play a
that you
role in it
have.
too.
But it is a paradigm shift. I mean, and that's the
Right.
important part. That
Yeah.
who's represented
Yeah.
here today, you're right, Dan, is not the default.
No.
Oh, you can get this anywhere. It really is taking, and we had a schematic of traditional thinking of this is our class, we'll adapt it for this kid, and turning it upside down. Thanks, Brandy. Turning it upside down to say this
We're
is
gonna
for
do
all kids.
For everybody.
And
Right.
and that it hasn't fully been taken on across the division, but when it has, and I could use our examples of in special education, people see it and it's, I see what you're doing there, and you're right, it does start to light up, but we're not there yet. This is a very choice selective, very powerful people in the room, and it's catching, but I want to be honest with you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Kevin, so for, like, after the classroom that I work in got renovated, how many teachers have started asking you from our building, can we use that room? Can we, like, I know that's where the tension is. It's not, this was a bad idea. It was like, can we do that too?
Yeah.
Yes.
After they see.
Yeah.
That's right. It's taking that step.
And it's
That's
also
the green screen in the eye space.
Yeah.
You know, kind of.
Yeah.
And the kids see it. So
Yeah.
there's a push for the kids. You know, it goes back to the classrooms, and if they are doing something else in another situation, the kids are part of that whole thing too. They want to try it. They have ideas for the teachers. You know, if the teachers listen to the ideas, then the kids have buy-in to the learning environment.
And some of the changes can be very simple. You should share your story about your teammate that you work with that lowered a few of her tables and one student.
Yeah, she lowered, I guess she has like two that are on the ground, they can come in, there's little like carpet squares.
Yeah.
And then there's your regular. And you know, when you come in and you put everything away, then you can pick wherever you want to set for the day. Well, she had one child that never made it on time to school. Never. She lowered that table. He has never been late since
So
because
he
he
can get that
wants to get in
table.
there, get himself organized, he does his checklist, and then he can get the table. Because see, the first couple of days, he thought if he got in there quick, he would get at the table, but he wasn't following what he needed to do. Once he started getting in there and then following now he's right there at the table every single day. She's never had an issue.
It's also
But it motivated, like you were talking, I mean, it motivates them.
Yeah, and it's a very organic process I've seen for teachers if you really want that lasting effect. The teachers go into their comfort level. Like when I finally got my own class, I was so excited like that it's not like, well, this is what I want to do with it, but this is, I have to also compromise with another teacher. So I just wanted to go all in. But you know, for some teachers, putting a couple beanbags in, that's enough for right now for them, and they need to get comfortable with that before they look further.
Yeah.
Some teachers really like their teacher desk and want to keep the teacher desk. It's all about just where teachers are, and it's the same with technology use at Walton. Teachers will get on board, but certain ones would like to know that it works and see it work with other people before they're willing to jump in, and then other people will jump in with both feet and just hope they can swim. And it's about trying to create that community where everybody feels comfortable. And like, you know, what I hope is I don't go into other classes and saying, well, you should do this to your class. But my room is in the center of the school. People have to walk through this to get to the kitchen. So a lot of people see the room. My hope is that they see it and, you know, look at it that way as opposed to me going in and, well, that needs to go, that needs to go, because that would just,
That wouldn't work.
it would never, yeah.
So I think there's certain designs in schools that are more able to do this kind of work with than other designs. So although like with us, we try to be flexible, and that, you know, in your situation, everything is planned out for the universal design for learning from the start.
Well, it's playing flexibility.
But there's flexibility in there. And so it's designing those spaces or getting those spaces that have the flexibility to be able to make the changes, I think, is really important, rather than setting it up a certain way that's fixed.
Right.
Because once you do that, then you're kind of stuck with the situation you have. And it's a little harder to work around, you know, but I think of it, for what I'm doing, as kind of an emergent design. And so if I think of something I want to do and I think, oh, you know, where's that going, or how is that going to work, what's going to happen with the kids when they see that, I have to make a choice, and I have to say to myself, what am I going to lose if I try it? You know, if I don't try it, I'm never going to know, am I? So if I try something different and it doesn't work, I won't do it again, or I'll change it, you know, and it's just kind of working with it that way rather than having a fixed thing in mind, but being able to try something flexible.
So you, I'm just gonna say, so you do not want to go back to the days when we had the desk bolted down to the floor.
I can tell you, I sat in those seats, and I can tell you so many stories about being behind the same student every year because it was alphabetical.
Me too.
You know, with the desk that slammed down on your fingers if you were messing around or something.
So I have two questions, just to respect what we want to answer real quick. Do we have 8:10?
Between 8:10 and 8:20.
Oh, so we're okay.
We've got
Yeah,
yes.
you guys are in very good shape.
Yes.
Good. So one question I have for you guys is sense of audience, because I hear we're doing things different. So one is, who are you? Who are the kids touching through their work and clearly authentic learning experience that they wouldn't have before? Because that's one element of the learning piece that just exponentially buys engagement. Yeah.
So, like, for my kids, it used to be that the kids in the CBIP program were very isolated in the building. They were very, like, they weren't seen very often by the rest of the building. And now the difference is that there are other students that are coming in and offering to help because there's a class that goes with that now. But also, like, they're going around the building every day and they've got like a certain job. It's an authentic assessment where they're interacting with those students, and it's changed everything. Like, it really has opened it up. They're having contact with more and different people every day. And it's awesome.
I have a question about the lunches or the salad. Now, do students, are they allowed to purchase lunch for
So at the moment, the bistro is limited to 16 spots, and it's extremely exclusive.
You have room to make reservations.
You have to make reservations well in advance, and we're actually booked for the year already.
Really?
So,
Tell me, and I'm sorry, but tell me what the initials stand for again.
the CBIP is for community based instructional program.
Okay.
It's a functional skills philosophy that's driving it, but there's a definite academic component as well. The bistro though, like, so what I mean by like it's booked is the priority are the kids' parents, and they get
That's
they
great.
get dibs, and then from there there's some extra seats that used to go to teachers in the building. It doesn't look like it's going to happen too much this year.
I love it.
And we also use it to invite the students that are going to be coming to us so that they can get an experience here. So when I said that we were inviting students from other buildings, they're from the middle school and they're from the programs that are going to be giving us the students next year. And
But the amazing part is behind the scenes. So you get the bistro, but I did have the pleasure of an honor of going last year and, you know, getting the behind the scenes tour. They're cranking through the kitchen, filling drinks, and it's not staff. And it's the kids coming out with the menu. It's a picture menu, universal design. We get to choose the picture menu items I'm going to get. I go to the register. The students are taking the money, doing the from beginning to end, cleaning dishes. So even when the parents are there, not all their kids are just for show. They're really working
You
it.
should find a way to invite school board members occasionally. I mean, seriously, it would be a really good learning experience for us as to what really.
fair enough. I will try to.
Cram us
open
in,
up.
but you need to give us a behind the scenes
An opening
tour.
pops up.
Yeah.
Share it while you're
But you need to give us
But
a
Andy-
behind the scenes tour.
Yeah. But your sense of audience for the kids.
So I think about that. There's a few things that come to mind. A lot of it has to do with the digital technology. You know, for instance, the kids having a real sense of audience by participating in the Virginia Film Festival. And so they all go to the downtown mall, and there's all of that. They have an audience there. There's, you know, that film that I started to show you, The Search, won the best of from Stony Point. So that's shown on the big screen in the Jefferson Theater. And then we had a seed project last year where we got iPads and worked with some of the kids to turn the hallways of Stony Point, where there's artwork all through the years of school, into an actual kind of virtual experience for people where they could read a QR code with an iPad, and then that takes them right there with the kid, talking about making the artwork. And so then that goes on YouTube, where we have access in the school, and so people can see that as that part of the audience. But then there's other things you can do with the technology that's not so much about the audience as it is about the learning experience for the kids. Like I'm using Math Forum online. My kids submit problems. I assign problems for them to do, and they can respond to those problems. So they're using the technology in order to respond rather than doing it in a handwritten format. And that's been kind of a challenge for my guys. So we're talking about with that group, it's gifted 4th and 5th graders, and I'll give them a 2nd grade problem that they can solve just like that in their heads, to get them to communicate about their thinking and send it out. So along with that, I'm going to set up a kid blog where they can talk about the problems with each other. We're working on that with 2nd grade too, so that they'll be able to go in. Now, the thing I like about that is you can have administrative access to it. So before they're submitted, they come directly to whoever is the administrator. So I see them before they're put up on the blog site.
Right.
It's closed to only students that are invited by me to attend, so they're kids that are in the class, so that doesn't go outside of we're protected with that, which I think is a really important piece. But we still get the iCloud permission for students in order to use that with the parents. And then what I get to do though is I see those responses coming in, and you can have a personal communication with the kid about appropriate and inappropriate use of what they're doing with that kind of blog. It's not so much that I'm worried about grammatical mistakes and that kind of thing, because that's going to stop the use of it. But it's just using that kind of thing appropriately, responding to whatever the task is they're given. So I can post a question on that, and they can respond and answer. They can talk about it between each other. So you can do that kind of virtual collaboration that you'd want to have in a classroom, and they can basically do it anywhere. They can go home and do it. They can gain access to the site at home. And then this is like an engineering project that I did, that I adapted from Kale. And it's for making the Stony Point Dragon. And so, these are little dragons that they made. These are going to go on display in the iSpace, but there's criteria that they have to follow, that each dragon has to follow. So for instance, this is a candy dragon that lives in Candyland, And so they have to problem solve to adapt it. And then this guy over here is a real artist
These are wonderful.
and sculptor.
Look
And
at
so,
that.
you know, he made this one, but they all have the same criteria that's on the list. And then they do these dragon design books and talk about the design process of making the dragons. So, part of this is we can use the fabricator to help with this. But I think it's important for the kids to be able to work on it spatially, do the things by hand before we get too much in the fabrication process, and eventually include those technology tools as part of the process we're working on, rather than just, planning everything on there. Think about, well, what's an appropriate way to use that?
Does Diantha know what a fabricator is even?
Well, I mean, I
Sure.
can guess what a fabricator would be.
They can do a
may-
two-dimensional design, it cuts it out, and they can make
But it
three-dimensional
literally
shapes.
cuts it out. Oh,
Mhm.
Yeah.
interesting.
Mhm.
Huh. Wow. I'm so far, this is so far over my head.
When they heard, the thing about it was, when the kids heard that it was going to go into the eye space, they wanted to make sure that the criteria was right. One of the things they were really concerned with was whether or not it was going to fit. I'm not the one to make that judgment about whether or not it works. They have other classmates that verify it
Yeah.
by using the checklist that's in the back of the design book. So they do the checklist, and then the verifier signs it. As long as they're verifying it for each other, I'm not the one that's going to say whether or not we're going to do it. They've talked about it, they've discussed it, had the criteria. I just want to facilitate the experience and kind of give that responsibility and learning to them.
This kind of teaching is so much more fun.
For me, it sucks.
Yeah.
It's so much more fun.
No, I mean, wouldn't you rather be doing this and giving out worksheets and going home at night and grading them?
If it's not
So
fun for us, why it can't be
Anybody
fun for
would
kids?
choose.
But there's a spot, there's a place for everything.
Well, I understand.
There's a place for
But
kids
still.
working on problem solving on a
Yeah.
sheet of paper too, that you can, it's like, I don't cut anything out.
Yeah, but it's just so much fun. That's right.
Did you have anything to
I
add,
wish
Bart?
I had these
Sure.
great questions, but I'm so overwhelmed.
That's,
by it.
So one of the things that Dr. Hahn already spoke about was the Ustream readings, and this is it's,
Oh, the Ustream.
it's on I have a link to it that I can share. But the kids got feedback instantaneously. So the next day at school, I put it all up on the screen for them, and they got feedback from a teacher in Ireland. They've gotten feedback from Australia. They had a college professor from University of Colorado that rode the bus, saw the link on Twitter, clicked on it, and watched kids read their stories on the way from his house to his building, on the way to work. It was like, I'm on the bus listening to your kids, they're awesome. That alone is just enough for kids to buy in and see that they have a real audience. My mom's a special ed teacher in New Jersey, so her kids watched it. My wife teaches kindergarten at Greer. Her kids watched it, and then today we watched her kids present on Community Helper Day. So her kids get the benefit of seeing older kids, and our kids know that they have an audience of younger kids. I have my kids teaching lessons to kindergartners. They've done it with the class at Meriwether Lewis and at my wife's class at Greer, where they plan the lesson. And we're having conversations. Well, how do kids learn? How do you think that they're going to get it? If they're kindergarten, have they gotten this before? So they have to think and then present and get in front of a camera. They have blogs that they can share with the world. We're going to be doing pen pals. I have one class plugged in with the class in Ireland. My other two classes are with an Australian class, so they're going to get that culture. Last year we did a class in Jordan, and the kids learned a lot about their culture. We have a Walton Writers Twitter account, and we had kids on National Day on Writing tweet about what they like to write. We keep it safe with just doing first names, but they're writing about either what they like, and we had some kids put in links to their stories that they posted online. So it's cool for them to just put that out there and just share it with other kids. And then throughout the day, kids would go through the Twitter feed and see who's writing about what. And the nice thing is the kids get so excited about it that liking school is not dorky. It's cool, and I think that's a big problem we face in middle school is, well, if I get too into it, I don't want my
cool.
Right. So we try to make it so that all kids get excited about it, and it's not, well, you like that? What's wrong with you? you should just say it stinks like everybody else. And the kids don't do that when they're engaged. And so it's just giving them that audience that's relevant and authentic. I think we're not just saying, well, pretend you're giving a speech to the state of Virginia, or what. We're saying these are the people watching you. This is the feedback, and they see it, so it's real.
And you're engaging them through their passions,
Mm-hmm.
and learning through that. I mean,
And we even
that's such a huge, and we've talked about that a lot.
And what's really sad is I think about all the emails I get from people who say, stop spending money on technology. Kids need to be writing with pencils and go back to blackboards. You know, I mean, that's what, and those people are getting fewer and fewer as the years are going by. But the reality is that if we could somehow or another disseminate this information out in the community, there would be a much better understanding.
It's an
I mean,
unrealistic
even
view
as
of the
simple
world.
as the Board of Supervisors level
Yeah.
we have. I mean, we have people at the Board of Supervisors who say, spending money on all that, you know.
and I have 6th grade parents that are coming in, and they're used to spelling lists from earlier grades. And there's nothing wrong; kids need to learn how to spell. But when we're at middle school, we really focus on writing and voice, and we have spell check. So that's universal design right there that all kids use. And they learn to fix their spelling weaknesses through how many red lines show up on their paper.
Universal design is spell check.
So what's happening
That's
is a
an
lot of these,
interesting.
well, a
I
lot
have
of
to
these,
admit, I've never really thought about it, but it's really.
a lot of the technologies that were adapted and originally created for individuals with disabilities then become adopted and become used ubiquitously by everybody else. The perfect
Yeah.
example is the iPhone is a bunch of technologies that have been cobbled together, and like Kevin and I were talking earlier, we used to crave a touchscreen, and we used
For
to
your students, yeah.
for students, and we would take these Velcro overlays that we attach onto the computer to get it to so that the kid could interact with it.
Yeah.
And now everybody is carrying one of these things around in their pockets. It's everywhere, and that's one of the promises that comes from it.
The iPad is basically for autistic. I mean, that's one of the main goals of the iPad.
Well, I do want to thank you. One of the things that's most impressive is seeing a group of people that don't work. I mean, I know some of you guys work together, but collectively every day, but yet the concept goes through, you know, all of your experiences. But want to thank you for taking the time tonight to share with us very much.
Somehow or another, we figure out how to get some people who, anyway, another discussion.
Yeah.
We need to get a board of supervisors member in each one of your all's classrooms. No, I mean, seriously.
It changes. I mean, you see different things from time to
Yeah.
time. You know, sometimes you might be working with a single student doing something, and you know, and it's totally different than it might be at another time. At least for me, that's the way it is.
All right, I think on
But
schedule.
that's the beauty of it too. Yeah,
Mhm.
you're right.
Yeah, we're yours.